Tonight, we're remembering 10 Motown songs from the 1960s and early 70s that helped build the sound of the label, even if they're rarely talked about today. And sometimes, the songs that didn't shout the loudest are the ones that stayed the longest. The final one on this list may be the quietest of them all.
This is the pain, oh yeah.
And maybe the hardest to forget. Let's begin where the memories start. Number 10, Still Water, Love by the Four Tops.
Still water, still water.
By the early 1970s, the Motown sound was beginning to stretch in new directions. The polished pop soul formula that defined the mid-60s was evolving into something deeper, more reflective, shaped by a country that was changing quickly. Still Water, Love, arrived in 1970 with a slower heartbeat than many of the hits that built the label's reputation. The opening feels almost cautious. The rhythm settles in gently, and then Levi Stubbs' voice steps forward.
How it runs so deep and true.
Not roaring the way he often did on earlier Four Tops records, but carrying a quiet urgency. One small detail always stands out in this recording: the way Stubbs leans into certain lines just slightly behind the beat, almost like a man choosing his words carefully before speaking them aloud. The song moves like a conversation more than a performance. At the time, Motown was beginning to allow its artists to explore heavier themes. Love not just as joy, but as responsibility, patience, and endurance. And if you were listening back then, this record didn't feel like background music. It felt thoughtful, almost adult. The kind of song that might play late at night when the house was finally quiet and your mind had room to wander. Not every Motown record needed to sparkle. Sometimes it just needed to breathe. Number 9, My Whole World Ended the Moment You Left Me by David Ruffin. By 1969, the Motown family was already beginning to shift. Voices that once blended inside legendary groups were stepping forward on their own, carrying familiar emotions into new territory. This song arrived right at that moment. The arrangement opens with a quiet weight, strings that feel almost suspended in the air. And then David Ruffin enters with a voice that sounds less like a performance and more like someone telling the truth after holding it in too long.
Last week my life had meaning.
There's something unmistakable about Ruffin's delivery here. His voice had always carried grit and gospel fire, but in this recording it feels worn in the best possible way, like a man who understands the cost of loving someone deeply. One detail that often goes unnoticed is how restrained the production is. The band never overwhelms the vocal. Everything pulls back just enough to let the emotion sit in the center of the room. In those years, Motown was known for bright rhythms and polished hits.
Did you ever need those sweet things?
But this record walked into a different emotional space, quieter, heavier. And if you heard it late in the evening, maybe after a long day or a difficult goodbye, it had a way of reaching places most songs didn't try to go. Some records entertain you, others sit beside you for a while. If that song carried heartbreak gently, the next one carried a kind of hopeful patience. Number 8, Love Child by Diana Ross and the Supremes. When this record arrived in 1968, it carried a message that wasn't common in pop music at the time. Motown had built its reputation on love songs that sparkled with optimism. But Love Child stepped into a more complicated conversation, one about dignity, hardship, and determination. From the very first notes, the rhythm section moves with purpose.
Rejected love child.
The bass line walks forward steadily while Diana Ross delivers the story with surprising firmness. There's no theatrical drama here. Instead, Ross sings with a calm resolve that makes the words land even harder. One studio detail worth noticing: the spoken style phrasing in the verses. Ross almost narrates the story rather than simply singing it, giving the song a confessional tone that was unusual for Motown at the time. For many listeners, especially young women hearing it on the radio, the song felt honest in a way that pop music rarely allowed. It acknowledged struggle, but it also promised something stronger than shame: pride, resilience, and hope. And for a 3-minute record on the radio, that was a quiet kind of courage. Sometimes the most powerful Motown songs weren't just about love, they were about protecting it. Number 7, I'm Living in Shame by Diana Ross and the Supremes.
Mama, mama, can you hear me?
By 1969, Motown had mastered the sound of glamour. The Supremes had become symbols of elegance. Polished performances, flawless harmonies, and songs that often felt like they belonged on a brightly lit stage. But this record stepped into a very different emotional room. I'm Living in Shame tells a quiet, painful story about a daughter who distances herself from the mother who raised her, chasing a life she believes will bring respect and acceptance. The music moves carefully, almost cautiously.
Mama's cooking bread. She wore a dirty, raggedy scarf.
The rhythm is steady, the arrangement understated, leaving space for the story to unfold. Diana Ross sings this one with a surprising restraint. There's no theatrical heartbreak in her voice. Instead, there's a controlled sadness, the kind that comes from realizing something too late. One detail that lingers is the small pause before the final revelation in the song's narrative. It's subtle, but that moment of silence lets the weight of the story settle before the truth arrives. When listeners first heard it, the song didn't feel like typical pop entertainment. It felt more like a lesson about pride, distance, and the quiet cost of forgetting where you came from. Most of us, if we live long enough, eventually learn that certain apologies arrive too late. And songs like this have a way of reminding us. Sometimes, though, Motown songs carried something lighter, a warm kind of joy that slipped into everyday life without asking for attention. Number 6, You've Really Got a Hold on Me by Smokey Robinson and the Miracles. In the early 1960s, before Motown became a worldwide powerhouse, many of the songs coming out of Detroit still carried the spirit of gospel and small club performances. You've Really Got a Hold on Me feels like one of those moments. The song opens simply. A gentle guitar line, a steady rhythm, and then Smokey Robinson's voice, smooth and thoughtful, almost floating over the music. What made Smokey special wasn't power, it was honesty. His voice had a softness that made even complicated emotions sound natural. One small recording detail always stands out: the delicate push and pull between Robinson's lead vocal and the Miracles' harmonies behind him. The background voices don't overpower the melody, they cradle it. The lyrics themselves capture a feeling most people recognize but rarely say out loud: loving someone deeply, while also knowing they have the power to hurt you. That emotional contradiction sits at the center of the song. And when it played on the radio back then, it felt less like a performance and more like someone quietly admitting the truth. Sometimes love doesn't make perfect sense, and maybe that's why songs like this never really fade. Number 5, You Keep Me Hanging On by the Supremes. By the mid-1960s, Motown had perfected a kind of musical electricity. Songs could begin with just a few seconds of sound and immediately command attention across the room. This one did exactly that. The record opens with a sharp, pulsing guitar line that almost feels like a signal being sent out through the airwaves. Within moments, the rhythm section locks in, and the song begins to move with a restless urgency. Diana Ross approaches the vocal differently here. Instead of the graceful bass she often carried on earlier Supremes records, her delivery feels firm, even a little defiant. One recording detail that gives the song its identity is the use of the Morse code-style guitar rhythm running beneath the verses. It creates a nervous tension that mirrors the emotional struggle in the lyrics. Because this isn't just a breakup song. It's about someone trying to free themselves from a love that refuses to loosen its grip. In a decade often remembered for sweetness and romance, this record allowed something else to appear in Motown's catalog. Frustration, independence, and the quiet strength of walking away. And for listeners hearing it in cars, kitchens, or small apartments back then, it sounded like someone finally saying the thing many people had been feeling. Sometimes love holds on longer than it should. If that song carried the sound of someone breaking free, the next one felt like the moment after the door closes, when the room finally grows quiet. Number 4, Ooh Baby Baby by Smokey Robinson and the Miracles.
You make mistakes too.
Few voices in Motown history could express regret the way Smokey Robinson could. Ooh Baby Baby moves slowly, almost like a confession unfolding in real time. The piano, the soft strings, and the steady rhythm create a gentle cushion for one of the most vulnerable vocals ever recorded at the label. Smokey doesn't rush the words.
I did you wrong.
He lets each phrase settle before moving to the next, as though he's still trying to understand how things went wrong. One subtle detail gives the song its emotional weight. The small break in Robinson's voice during the opening lines. It isn't polished away. Instead, it remains right there in the recording, making the performance feel human and immediate. At the time, many love songs promised forever, but this one acknowledged something more familiar: mistakes, regret, and the quiet hope that forgiveness might still exist.
Until that day.
If you're still listening tonight, you probably know this feeling well. And if these memories mean something to you, subscribing helps keep these quiet little stories alive. Because songs like this were never just entertainment. They were apologies we sometimes wished we could say ourselves. Number 3, The Bells by The Originals. By the early 1970s, Motown had already given the world countless bright rhythmic hits. But every so often, a record arrived that felt quieter, almost reflective, as though it had something deeper to say. The Bells was one of those songs. The arrangement begins softly, built around gentle piano and strings that seem to float through the air rather than drive the rhythm forward. It doesn't rush. It allows the emotion to unfold slowly.
When I'm kissing you, baby.
Walter Gaines leads the vocal with a careful tenderness, delivering each line like someone remembering a moment that still lingers years later. One subtle detail gives the record its emotional character: the soft bell tones layered into the arrangement. They don't dominate the song, but they echo quietly in the background, reinforcing the feeling of memory. Something distant, but impossible to ignore. When listeners heard this record in 1970, it felt different from many Motown songs that came before it. There was patience in the music, space between the notes. It sounded like reflection.
But it's one thing I want you to
And if you were listening late at night, maybe after a long conversation or a quiet drive home, the song had a way of settling gently into your thoughts. Because sometimes memories arrive softly, and once they do, they rarely leave. But if that song carried the sound of remembering, the next one carried something warmer. The feeling of discovering love at a moment when you didn't expect it. Number 2, Ain't That Peculiar by Marvin Gaye.
You do me wrong, but still I'm crazy about you.
When Marvin Gaye stepped into the studio in the mid-1960s, Motown already knew it had a remarkable voice. But what made Gaye special wasn't just his range or tone, it was the way he understood feeling. Ain't That Peculiar moves with a bright groove, the bass line walking confidently, the tambourine shaking gently along with the beat.
But I'm so much in love with you, baby, girl, I don't want to see.
On the surface, the record feels upbeat, but Marvin's vocal reveals something more complicated. He sings with a mixture of warmth and quiet frustration, describing the strange contradictions that often live inside love. One small moment in the recording captures that balance perfectly. The playful way Gaye bends certain phrases, almost smiling through the melody, even while the lyrics describe confusion and heartache. It's a reminder that love isn't always simple. Sometimes it surprises us, confuses us, and keeps us coming back anyway. And if you heard this song drifting from a radio speaker in 1960, it probably felt familiar in ways that were hard to explain, because the heart rarely behaves the way we expect it to. Number 1, I Wish It Would Rain by The Temptations.
Sunshine, blue skies, please go away.
Some songs don't simply play on the radio. They arrive and sit beside you for a while. I Wish It Would Rain came out in 1967 during a period when Motown was refining the emotional depth behind its polished sound. The Temptations had already delivered powerful performances before this, but this record carried something unusually heavy. The opening feels almost cinematic. Soft piano, distant strings, and a slow rhythm that sounds like footsteps through a quiet street. Then, David Ruffin begins to sing.
But everyone knows that a man ain't supposed to cry.
His voice doesn't hold anything back here. There's a rawness in the way he leans into the lines, especially when the chorus arrives, as though the emotion inside the song is just barely contained. One small detail from the recording adds to its weight. The way the background harmonies from the other Temptations enter almost like a chorus of sympathetic voices, echoing the pain rather than competing with it. The story inside the song is simple. A man wishing for rain, just so the world won't notice his tears. But when listeners heard this record back then, the feeling behind it reached far beyond the lyrics. Everyone understands the need to hide heartbreak sometimes. Everyone knows what it means to carry pain quietly.
My eyes search the skies, desperately for rain.
And this song gave that feeling a voice. Even decades later, when those first notes appear, it still feels like the room grows a little still. Because some songs never stop telling the truth. Looking back now, it's easy to remember the biggest Motown hits, the songs that climbed the charts and filled dance floors across the country. But the label was also built on quieter records like these, songs that didn't always get the spotlight, yet carried the same heart, the same voices, and the same moments that stayed with us long after the radio faded out. If you've been listening tonight, there's a good chance these songs stirred up a few memories of your own. Maybe a place, maybe a person, maybe a moment you hadn't thought about in years. And that's the beautiful thing about music from this era. It doesn't just belong to history. It belongs to the lives we lived while it was playing. Thank you for spending this time remembering with me. And if you'd like to open another door into those years, there's another story waiting on the screen right now. 12 overlooked R&B guitarists who outplayed the legends. More songs, more voices, and more moments that shaped the sound of a generation. Until then, keep the music close.